Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Ireland's Forgotten Past, a history of the overlooked and disremembered, by Turtle Bunbury, narrated by Roger Clark. The past is never where you think you left it. Catherine Ann Porter. Introduction. The first inkling of humanity in Ireland involves the butchering of a bear near the River Shannon almost 13,000 years ago. Following the maxim of 30 generations every 1,000 years, that brings us back to a mind-numbing 390 generations. The first Bunbury arrived in Ireland a mere 11 generations ago, either on the run or on the make, depending on your perspective. He settled amid the healthy pastures of County Carlow in the 1660s and bought a farm for his son, the farm where I grew up and where my 2 young daughters are now enjoying their childhood. Part of my fascination with the past stems from being raised in a Victorian country house stuffed with family portraits, musty books, and bizarre curiosities scooped up by ancestors on their travels. Certainly a number of the stories that follow were born from a desire to understand Ireland as it was for my poker-faced forebears. I am also in love with the landscape around me. I live within a 3-minute hop of an overgrown ring fort that was once home to perhaps 7 or 8 families. In the field beside it, a soundless underground stream flows east for half a mile before tumbling into a river, alongside the very last traces of a monastery, so old that almost nothing is known of it. Just south of the monastery is a fabulous dolmen, a portal tomb constructed by unknown, unknowable Neolithic hands some 5,000 years ago. We cannot quite see the dolmen from our home, but we can see the long golden strip of the barley field that runs behind it, a strip that transpired to be stuffed with ancient barrows and circular enclosures when a friendly drone zeroed in on it from the skies above during the long, hot summer of 2018. Up until that time, nobody had any idea that the barley field had a past. What's past is prologue, observes Shakespeare's Antonio in The Tempest, and yet sometimes the prologue is indecipherable or nowhere to be seen. The dolmen earns a brief mention in the occasional tourist brochure, but I have never seen any record of the monastery or ring fort. No archived memories of who built them, who dwelt there, who slept, ate, thought, laughed, loved, mourned, or died there. It is simply the shapes of earth and stone that reveal the human touch. The same can be said for so much of Ireland. Every field, hill, stream, and rock seems to hold another secret about the island's past, even as we glide by indifferent or unaware hilltops, summits crowned with ancient forts, rocky cairns, and the ghostly outlines of primeval forests, riversides studded with ruined castles, hollow mills, and crumbling farmsteads, the bramble-strewn shells of abandoned canals and copper mines, the stumps of pillars that once carried railway lines, the overgrown graveyards where the forgotten bloodlines lie. Forgotten, for meaning away, gotten, from a Germanic verb to grasp, hence something that has got away, the grasp of a memory. What was once remembered and acknowledged has become neglected, overlooked, disregarded, and unremembered, perhaps irretrievably so. The vast majority of this world's occurrences have simply faded into oblivion. It was not until the eruption of the information age in the past half-century that attempts to chronicle the past became in any way mainstream. A change is coming now. The appetite to reconstruct the fragmented world of our forebears is an increasingly powerful market force, supported by big business interests in genealogy, tourism, the movie industry, and such like. The challenge will be to keep track of what truths are told, to understand the motives of the storyteller, to ensure those facts are verifiable, that the spin can be balanced and counterbalanced, that the reshaping of the past does not imperil the future. This book shines a light on 36 lesser-known tales from the annals of Irish history. Some have been snubbed for reasons unclear. Others are simply so odd that it's high time they came to light again. The cast includes a pair of ill-fated prehistoric chieftains, a psychopathic Viking monarch, a chivalrous Norman warrior, a dazzling English traitor, an ingenious tailor, an outstanding warhorse, a fanatical spymaster, a brothel queen, a randy prince, and an insanely prolific sculptor. It begins with a volcano and concludes with Operation Shamrock, a humanitarian mission at the close of the Second World War that not only showcased the innate Irish empathy for the downtrodden, but also heralded a brave new Ireland, a country that would ultimately go on to become not simply an outlying frontier of European eccentricity, but a remarkable global hub that, in the present century, consistently punches way above its weight. Although the tales are not specifically linked, I am of the view that almost everything is connected one way or another, when one digs deep enough. Taken as a whole, these stories underline why Ireland is such an exceptional island for anyone interested in the past. There is an awful lot of amazing history out there. The juiciest plots, the greatest twists, the richest characters, and yet so much of it remains, even now, forgotten. Turtle Bunbury, County Carlow. 1. Of tetrapods and volcanic rings. Should you ever find yourself on Valentia Island, off the coast of County Kerry, you might venture to its northern shore in pursuit of a fossilized trackway, unwittingly imprinted for eternity by a Devonian tetrapod that pitter-pattered upon this planet 385 million years ago. The footprints of that 1 meter, 3¼ foot long creature are among the oldest fossils in Ireland, but just in case you think this four-legged beauty sounds like a dinosaur, please observe that it lived 150 million years before the dinosaurs. Fast forward to about 66 million years ago when a giant asteroid, perhaps 15 kilometers, 9 miles in diameter, slammed into the Earth and wiped out approximately 3/4 of the known animal and plant kingdom, including all non-avian dinosaurs. That astral cataclysm spelled the end of what's called the Cretaceous period and the start of the Paleogene period, at which point Ireland was hovering on a latitude roughly equivalent to where Portugal sits today. As such, the island was in pole position for the considerable turbulence that befell the world when, 5 million years into the Paleogene, the North Atlantic Ocean was born. The ocean's birth was a long, drawn-out affair. In Ireland it was marked by the eruption of the Antrim basalts, which created the Giant's Causeway, and a swell of scorching hot magma gushing across the mountains of Mourne. Its legacy can clearly be seen at the Ring of Goulion in County Armagh, through which enormous numbers of people drive on the Dublin to Belfast road every day. The ring measures 11 kilometres, 7 miles in diameter, and covers more than 15,000 hectares, 37,000 acres. Its huge rocks are the remnants of a massive volcanic caldera that collapsed, as calderas are wont to do. Simultaneously, layer upon layer of magma intruded into the heart of the volcano itself to form Slieve Goulion, 576 metres, 1,890 feet, now the highest peak in County Armagh. Attempts to grapple with all this shape-shifting geology are complicated by the miscellaneous glaciers that left their mark during the ensuing Ice Age. Numerous glaciations eroded the region's weaker sediments, leaving the hard volcanic rocks of the Ring of Gullion and Sleeve Gullion standing sturdy and proud. A geological fault running through the low ground between the ring and the north of Sleeve Gullion became a glacial ribbon lake, now known as Cam Loch. In the Celtic legends, the warrior Finn MacCool is tricked into diving into another of Sleeve Gullion's lakes by the Cailleach Mhéara, the Hag of Beara. The moment his muscular torso hits the water, he is transformed into a weak and withered old man. At length he guzzles an antidote and is restored to full strength, but his hair remains white ever after. Such fabulous tales gather added kudos when one visits the 5,000-year-old passage tomb near the Hag's Lake, aligned with the setting sun on the winter solstice. This is the highest such tomb in Ireland. And just in case you're starting to think 5,000 years is a very long time ago, it is, in fact, only 0.001% of the 385 million years that have passed since that Valentia tetrapod took a stroll. 2. It starts with a bear. Somewhere in the region of 12,800 years ago, a hunter in County Clare confronted a big brown bear with a sharp stone flint. Having won the battle, the hunter dragged the bear into a cave near present-day Ennis, where he or she began butchering the beast, stripping the meat and smashing the bones to access its high-protein marrow. At least, that's one conceivable explanation for a surviving bear patella, or kneecap, found in the aforesaid cave. A series of lopsided, man-made cuts on that patella are presently regarded as the earliest conclusive evidence of mankind in Ireland. The Paleolithic bear hunter must have been among the first humans to take advantage of the melting waters that freed up the lands of northern Europe after an ice age that had lasted nearly 100,000 years. The rising sea levels created the island of Ireland as a separate entity to Britain and the rest of Western Europe. Nearly 3,000 winters after the death of the bear, a band of humans made a clearing in a primitive forest between Credon Head and Dunmore East in County Waterford. They constructed what is believed to be the oldest settlement in Ireland. Thousands of stone knives, scrapers, and tiny blades made from chert pebbles have been found at the site. At about this time, similar settlements sprang up at Ballyferreter near Dingle, County Kerry, and at Mount Sandal near Coleraine, County Derry. Our knowledge of what Ireland was like during the Mesolithic period remains profoundly vague. These people were shorter than us, and shorter-lived too, with lifespans perhaps half the length of our own. They may have been dark-skinned and blue-eyed, like England's 10,000-year-old Cheddar Man is thought to have been. They would have spoken their own fully-fledged language, incomprehensible to modern ears. Excavations at Mount Sandal suggest they live in egg-shaped, dome-roofed structures, constructed of timber posts, saplings, hide, bark, thatch, and reeds. Perhaps a dozen people could comfortably fit into each hut. The inhabitants snoozed around a central hearth that afforded them a holy trinity of heat, light, and a place to cook. The flintsmith was of pivotal importance, crafting arrowheads, hide scrapers, and spears with razor-sharp blades, as well as polished stone picks and axes. Women played a key role in the quest for food. During the summer, these plucky souls foraged for crab apples, lily seeds, berries, and protein-rich hazelnuts that could be kept in storage for the leaner months. Taking to the water in dug-out log canoes, they trapped and speared the migrating salmon, sea bass, plaice, flounder, and autumnal eel that swam in and around the estuaries and coastline. The fish were smoked or dried on wooden racks just beside their huts. In the cold, wet winters, Mesolithic people fed on wild pigs, hares, and other edible animals, as well as birds such as wood pigeon, teal, and mallard. Eagle bones found at Mount Sandal are thought to indicate a fashionable fancy for eagle feathers in clothing and headdresses, rather than a passion for eagle meat. Traces of red ochre on flint blades suggest that they also liked to paint their bodies in times of ceremony. There were other Mesolithic communities in Ireland, primarily along the coast of northern Ulster, as well as the Blackwater Valley in the south. Still more people settled on the shores of Galway Bay, where they evidently had a soft spot for limpets. Ireland's oldest known graveyard is a Mesolithic burial pit near the River Shannon, at Hermitage, County Limerick, where the efficient cremation of two bodies, perhaps 9,500 years ago, indicates that the funeral party were no strangers to such procedures. It is no surprise that the population stuck to the coast and rivers, given that the interior of Ireland at this time was effectively an impenetrable forest. A squirrel could apparently swing from tree to tree from Mallinhead, on the northernmost coast of County Donegal, all the way down to Mizenhead, on the southernmost tip of County Cork, without ever touching the ground. That said, some hunters made it inland as far as Boora Bog in County Offaly, where there is yet more archaeological evidence of humans chopping up animals and fish with axes and flint 9 millennia ago. Life in Mesolithic Ireland appears to have continued undisturbed generation after generation for several thousand years. Our knowledge of this epoch of early humanity in Ireland is wreathed in emptiness and speculation. Estimates of the island's peak population vary from 3,000 to as high as 40,000. In any event, the age was to come to an end with the arrival of the first Neolithic settlers, almost 6,000 years ago. The fate of the Mesolithic inhabitants is unclear, but they were almost certainly either displaced or assimilated by the highly driven and intriguing newcomers. 3. Neolithic stargazers. Just outside the town of Carlow stands a work of immense human ingenuity and antiquity. Known as the Browns Hill Dolmen, this burial tomb comprises two hefty sculpted boulders standing upright, atop of which tilts a massive, weather-beaten granite slab that is estimated to weigh a whopping 103 tons. That's about the same as 17 fully grown Indian elephants, or a Boeing 757 jet. If the All Blacks and the Lions rugby teams were to unite with the 100 strongest National Football League players from the USA, they would struggle to nudge the Browns Hill capstone by an inch. How they managed to elevate that formidable slab remains a mystery, but archaeologists believe that Browns Hill and the other 180 or so portal tombs in Ireland were probably created by a combination of beefy humans and brawny oxen, working with timber sledges greased with lard or tallow, as well as rolling trunks, earth ramps, knotted ropes, levers, counterweights, and pivots. Although the site has not yet been excavated, the Browns Hill Dolmen is thought to have been created in about 3900 BC. Dolmens are a type of megalith, from the Greek for large stones, of which at least 1,500 were constructed across Ireland during what is known as the Neolithic period. Limited excavations carried out to date have yielded human bones, both burnt and unsullied, as well as decorated pottery, beads, bone pins, and flints. These were clearly burial tombs built by a people who cremated and then venerated their dead. In 2019, scientists published their findings after a genetic analysis of teeth belonging to 11 individuals found in 2 tombs at Carramore, Ireland's oldest Neolithic complex, on the Cuil Éire Peninsula in County Sligo. The results revealed that those buried within were from the same family and predominantly male, and that the tombs may have been used for at least 12 generations. While some megaliths clearly served as family mausoleums, many were also brilliantly designed with one eye on solar or lunar events taking place in the skies above. In other words, they doubled up as the world's first clocks, elaborate sundials that enabled these budding farmers to keep track of time. Some were aligned with the spring equinox, the start of the sowing season, or the autumnal equinox, when the harvest is traditionally complete. Yet more were designed to show the halfway point between solstices and equinoxes, providing the 4 cross-quarter days of Ilmbolg, February, Beltane, May, Lunasa, August, and Samhain, November, while others appear to be attuned to the 8-year cycle of Venus or to the 3 stars of Orion's belt, one of the principal indicators of the solstices. Some were modestly harmonized to reflect relationships with other sacred monuments or natural topographical features in the vicinity. The Neolithic pièce de résistance is at Newgrange, in County Meath, where an astounding underground burial chamber is tucked inside a man-made mound of 200,000 tons of earth and loose stones. Every 21st of December, or winter solstice, the rising sun shoots its rays down an 18.8-metre, 61 3/4 of a foot long, damp-proofed passageway into a chamber where it triumphantly strikes a triple spiral motif on the back wall, illuminating the entire space for the next 14 minutes. Cloudy mornings aside, it has achieved this feat without fail for approximately 5,200 solstices in a row. As well as megaliths, there are at least 187 surviving stone circles in Ireland, although untold numbers have been destroyed over the past millennia. For instance, the 30 monuments that stand at Carramore today represent less than half the number counted in a survey of the area in 1837. Not all of these stone circles were constructed in the Neolithic period. Some hail from the Bronze Age, although their purpose appears to have been primarily ceremonial or funerary. The monuments often indicate a keen astronomical awareness. Others are reputedly aligned with ley lines, the mysterious energy channels that are said to crisscross the globe. The architects of these cosmological masterpieces arrived from afar early, in the 4th millennium BC, and dominated much of the Irish landscape until their disappearance shortly before 2000 BC. Sadly, we know precious little about them, save that they were skilled farmers with a profound knowledge of astronomy and engineering, as well as a deep commitment to the afterlife. They are thought to have come from Galicia in Spain, or from Brittany in France. Both landscapes are also liberally spotted with megaliths. They were predominantly olive-skinned and dark-haired, not unlike present-day Sardinians, and lived in huts constructed with timber beams, finely woven wood, wattle, and dried mud, daub. You would not want to pick a fight with someone from the Neolithic age. A scientific analysis of arm bones belonging to Neolithic women from Central Europe indicated that they were between 11 and 16% more muscular than Cambridge University's female rowing crews. These women came of age in the wake of an agricultural revolution, that began in places such as the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East 10,000 years ago, and gradually inched its way across Europe. The Neolithic people who populated Ireland had acquired much of the knowledge of the Mesopotamian farmers, including such energy-saving innovations as using pack animals to carry cumbersome weights. They also knew how to mine for porcelainite, a china-like stone much tougher than flint, which proved ideal for axes, sickles, and digging implements. Over 18,000 axes from this period have been found in Ireland to date. The best examples are always made of porcelainite mined on either Rathlin Island, off the coast of County Antrim, or near Cushendall, in the glens of Antrim. With fire, beast, and porcelainite axe, Neolithic people cleared the upland forests, converted the land into extensive fields, and cultivated barley and emmer wheat. Elsewhere they farmed indigenous pigs on the grassy pastures, as well as cattle, goats, and sheep that they somehow shipped into Ireland. Beneath a raised blanket bog on the cliff edge of northern County Mayo, a series of stone walls mark the outline of the Céide fields, an efficiently planned 1,200-hectare 3,000-acre dairy farm that may have been operational as far back as 3000 BC. Neolithic people were also no amateurs when it came to boat building. In 1901, a perfectly preserved log boat was found at the Lurgan Bog in County Galway. Measuring over 14 metres, 45 foot, long and 1 metre, 3¼ foot wide, it was hollowed out of a single oak trunk 4,000 years ago by a people armed with nothing more than stone tools and fire. Archaeologists believe it may have been a ceremonial boat, and that it would have required at least 12 oarsmen. A number of other sleek Neolithic dugout canoes have been found since, including the 12-metre, 40-foot-long Annakeen canoe in Loch Corrib, County Galway, which was carbon-dated to 2500 BC, and the remains of an oak-wood log boat at Oldbridge on the River Boyne, carbon-dated to between 3300 BC and 2900 BC. This is certainly much to learn. Following the summer drought of 2018, archaeologists found almost 40 hitherto unnoticed monuments in Brú na Boinne, a part of the Boyne Valley, that was already home to the world's largest concentration of Neolithic henges, as well as its greatest wealth of megalithic art. Among the new discoveries were another monument aligned with sunrise on the winter solstice, 2 circular henges, one 150 metres, 492 feet in diameter, and the remnants of a massive avenue made from large tree trunks. Another large passage tomb was discovered at Doubt Hall in County Meath in 2018. The Neolithic age came to a relatively abrupt halt in about 2400 BC, when Ireland's population plunged by a whopping 90%, precipitating the widespread abandonment and destruction of their settlements. Some have proposed this was caused by a bacterial plague, akin to the Black Death of the 1340s, but there is mounting evidence to suggest that the Neolithic inhabitants of Ireland were victims of a mass genocide. Their demise also appears to have coincided with the arrival of a new people from afar, heralding the onset of the Bell Beaker culture and the Bronze Age. 4. The Bell Beakers. Although they might sound like a nice family from Gloucestershire, the Bell Beakers were actually a vast group of people who followed a way of life that predominated across maritime Europe about 4,000 years ago. As well as having their own set of religious beliefs and languages, the Bell Beaker folk advocated a material culture characterized by a remarkable ability to work with copper, bronze, and gold, as well as a fondness for good beer. This mindset is thought to have originated along the Tagus estuary in present-day Port.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?